Let's welcome to the Davion Knight Artprenuer Podcast, where here we talk about being an artpreneur, which means you're an artist, but you're also an entrepreneur, and what it is that it takes to be in this industry, what it is that's behind the scenes. This is away from the glamour. This is away from the whole Hollywood notion. This is away from what you see in the commercialized industry. This is more about what it is that the artist on the street, the artist with the canvas has to really go through and paint through and whatnot, and how it has turned into a business. So how if you're a musician or you're an artist, you're a producer, engineer, how you are basically a one man business, a one man army, and not everybody. This is not pertaining to everyone, but for most of us, such as myself and whatnot, I would say that'd be the case. So, welcome. It's been a while since I've done this podcast, man, and I'm going live right now on my Facebook page, on my Davion Knight Facebook page. So, if you guys want to tune in, you guys are more than glad to tune in. You can always rewind the video, listen to it again, or rewind the stream and check it out whenever at your leisure. Okay, so let's get started. Let's get going in right now. And one thing is, how did I get into writing music or becoming a songwriter? This is a very interesting thing because I started off basically being influenced by hip hop music at a very young age. Like I remember when I used to listen to all the 90s hip hop, all the 90s records, and throughout the early 2000s. And I remember I wanted to be like them. I mean, I got photos. I'll post up those photos on my Instagram or Facebook, where you could basically tell which artist I'm trying to emulate. I mean, the iced out cross with the pinky ring and the iced out. I mean, especially in the early 2000s, man. If you know, you know. So that's basically where I kind of got influenced my start, and I kind of listening to lyrics and battle rappers and stuff like that, which I've kind of moved away from throughout the years, but that is where I started. And at the end of the day, you always sometimes have to go back to your roots. So every now and then I'll dim the lights and just put on one of those type battle rap type beats and just go on my own zone just to remember where it all spawned from, right? Even though, like I said, throughout the years I've moved away from it, and we'll get into that in more detail in just a minute. So throughout the years I got inspired, so I started writing songs as best as I could, writing all these lyrics and whatnot, or trying to just freestyle on these beats. And back then it was different because back then it was CDs. This was before the streaming age, which I'm so glad it was before the streaming age, because back then it was just very difficult to um things were just very, very actually different back then, as in how it is now. But I gotta tell you this though, as time went on, I kept writing and writing and writing, and of course, my stuff was all very beginner, amateurish. So a lot of it never came out. I never published a lot of it because I knew that it was, not up to par for the public to hear it, and I knew they weren't going to really enjoy it like that. And so time went on, and I became a part of a rap group. And also at that time, while I became a member of a certain rap group, I had gotten my start as a gentleman's club DJ, spinning top 100 records while dancers would be on stage and whatnot. So that was very eye opening. I became a DJ. I started to learn the production side of things a little bit. I started to learn how to connect hardware a little for the most part, and things got very interesting from there. Things started to take a turn for the positive as far as the production side went. But when it came to becoming an artist, there was a whole new thing that was about to happen, and I was not aware of it in my life at that time. So I became a part of this rap group, and it was time for me to perform on stage. And I had never performed on stage before. Like, that whole part with 8 Mile where Eminem freezes up when, what I'm saying, where he catches, he just freezes. That was me. I would freeze, and there's a crowd there waiting, and you're live and people have their cameras. And like I said, back then people had camcorders. This was way before, you know, um, this was before the digital audio before you had to use your iPhone like what I'm recording. So anyways, people are watching you, you're live, and it was my first time performing on stage. And I remember I just went out there. It was in Corpus Christi. I'll never forget, man. It was out in Corpus Christi, and I think Budweiser was sponsoring the show. And this was back in the day. I'm talking about 2007, I believe, 2006, somewhere around there. And I remember the crowd just, I went out there and I just, I conquered my fear. I went out there, I performed, I did the whole waving thing up and down, and I did whatever I could, but I went with as much confidence as I could, and the audience accepted it and loved it. And it was just mostly a bunch of younger cats, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids. And it was cool because they afterwards they ran up to us, me and the group, and they wanted us to sign the copy of the CDs or mixtapes we were selling at that time on the burned CDs. So we were signing our autographs on burned CDs back in those days. And it was awesome because we weren't even famous or anything like that. This was way before, Spotify didn't exist back then. And to have, these young teenagers run up to you and say, "Hey, man, we loved your performance. Could you sign, this mixtape that you're giving us?" And I said, "Man, it was an awesome thing to be able to experience it at that level." Is something that was very, very cool for me. Very something that an experience that a lot of people didn't get, especially when it's your first performance ever, and you think that you're gonna mess it up, you're gonna botch it up and whatnot. And I almost did, and I'm glad I didn't. I stuck with it. I just went through with it. I said, "Hey, I'm an artist. This is what I do. I perform. This is what I do." Even though it was my first time and I never had no prior experience to that, the fact that I went out there and did it and conquered my own self, gave in return the people came, the youngsters, the people in the audience gave me an experience that I never thought I'd receive. So that was very cool, and that's how I kind of got my start into it. And back then I was rapping over a Fabulous beat, by the way. So I didn't even have my own beat or my own, I was using, that's why they were mixtapes. I was using, shout out to Fabulous for that beat. It's on the Real Talk album. And I remember I used his beat and I rapped over that beat, and that was a beat that I used when I performed. Now this was back in the day, like I said, this was a long time ago. Um, and I'm very glad that I was able to get that start. So, having that said and whatnot, things started to go on for there. We started recording more. I started taking my writing a lot more seriously. I started, really getting into the craft and try to make myself as best as I could, because I obviously got such a good result from it, good feedback, that I wanted to keep it up. And that's how the thing, how the industry is different compared to now is that everything's gone digital. Everything is digital now. And so CD sales will not, and I know vinyl's making a comeback, but however, CD sales will still be down because streaming is here to stay. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm streaming. So I'm going live on Facebook, and I'm recording my podcast on a Pro Tool session. So, it's gonna be streamed, what I'm saying? So the days of CDs, are they're still around if they're a true fan or whatnot. I haven't pressed any, believe it or not. I haven't pressed any because no one's told me that they want a CD. If they would, I would. I would make it a priority to have CDs pressed. But really, with the digital age right now, I just don't see anybody demanding me to do it, or the industry pointing that way for me to do it. So I haven't done it. And who knows? I probably will. I might surprise you guys. The good thing is that CDs compared to vinyl are relatively inexpensive. Vinyl is very expensive to press. It's making this comeback, but you're talking about, you'll pay a couple $1,000s just for a couple hundred vinyl records. So they are pricey. So maybe that'll do that too in the future. Who knows, right? Right now, there's a bunch of possibilities. So if you tuned into me, we're 9 minutes and 6 seconds into this stream. So if you've been here that long listening to me talk, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Even if you're not live right now, the fact that you rewinded this video and watched my stream, or you're listening to the session on my YouTube channel, I appreciate that, because you could be doing anything else in the world, and yet you decided to stick here and tune in with me, 9 minutes and 33 seconds into this recording. So that's awesome. I appreciate you guys for that. So back to being a songwriter, I started traveling a lot too, visiting family. And as I would travel, and sometimes I would actually, be amongst the homeless, I would hang out with other homeless people and write songs with them, and write songs, learn lyrics. I was in Nashville, Nashville, Tennessee, and I was there amongst the homeless for a while. But since Nashville, Tennessee is a country music scene, there are a lot of songwriters there. And I remember going in to go get a cup of coffee one morning, and I saw this guy with a guitar just sitting there in the corner writing his songs and playing. And I told him I was very interested to learn his writing style and whatnot. And he told me something very profound. He said, you got to write what you feel so that they can feel it too. If not, your audience will tell it's not genuine. Wow, that really struck me because I was like, all this time I'm trying to write what sounds cool. And the entire time I got this guitar player telling me, no, man, if you write, if you do not write what's from the heart, eventually you will disconnect from your audience. Your audience will not receive your message, or at least not the proper way, because you're not being genuine as far as how you're delivering that message. So that right there struck me, and it changed the way that I started writing songs. So once I left Nashville and I moved with some family and whatnot, I went ahead and I got my own first little recording studio gig. And I remember it was just a basic setup, kind of like what I have now, and it was just my PC, a mic stand, a condenser mic, and a regular Scarlett interface. And I remember that I started recording my first single, which I dropped in 2019 called Lately. But before that, I had already been releasing underground CDs back when CDs were around. Like I said, like I mentioned, back in the early 2000s, we would actually sell our CDs like that, $5 a pop, out of a box, out of a trunk. And but it was nothing official. So in 2019 is when I officially released my actual project with everything licensed and whatnot and leased and having all the proper how can you say, the formalities that are needed in order to release something genuine, to release something official. So that started, and that's how I became a songwriter. And I just started off, and right after I followed up with Lately. You could check this out on all the digital platforms, by the way. So it doesn't matter: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, wherever you like to, Pandora, where else, anywhere else that you could think of. For the most part, or you could just go to Google and type in Davion Knight music or Davion Knight artists, and it'll show you where you can listen to these songs. And so anyways, I dropped Lately in 2019, and I got such a good feedback from it. And at that time, Clap Charts was around. Clap Charts is based out of France, and what they do in France is that they spin, your records to people that are signed up to their webpage and whatnot. And I got a lot of good feedback from them, even though Clap Charts is no longer around anymore. I think they shut down. So after that, I followed it up with a 16 song album called Heartbreak Avenue. And this is where I moved from the whole battle rap thing and stuff like that. I actually started becoming more of a R&B, more of a singer instead, because I wanted to give a genuine message, back to that guitar player who said that if I didn't write things correctly, I would disconnect from my audience. And so I really wanted to do things that connected with the audience and be as genuine as I could without actually like being without being fake in any kind of way. Because a lot of, and this is no diss to no artist or anything, but there's a lot of rappers or artists out there that brag about things that they don't have. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing to say that you're dreaming about it or that you wish you could have, but they be making statements that they actually have these things or they actually live a certain lifestyle. And the thing is, I didn't want to do that with my music because I didn't want to alienate anybody, and I didn't want to put myself in a position where people could call me out for not being real or not being genuine as far as who I was. So I figured that it'd be way better if I just became an R&B singer and then sang from my heart as far as what I believed or causes that I believed in. That way, whenever the years go on, and they have gone on, I released that project in 2019, and we're in 2023 right now. So it's not that far away, but looking back, I'm very proud of what I've done and what I've been able to do because it wasn't easy. It took a long time. I think it took almost a year just to record that album, and I did it as best as I could with the little resources that I had. And I dropped it during a time when the industry was moving away from albums because it's a singles economy now. Right now, it's all about singles. Um, and I think it's actually better to make singles because you get to market your product. You get to give it a full every single song. You could treat it like a one song album and give it its full attention. Because when you drop a project that has like more than like 5 songs, you just lose the audience. And the only song that they listen to is the first one. That the first one, if you ever drop, your analytics will tell you, like they don't listen to nothing more than that one song on your album, and then the rest, So dropping an album didn't make sense, right? But back then, I didn't know that the industry was going that way, and I really wanted something, a project that I could be proud of. So that right there was really how that came about. And we're 16 minutes into this recording. So if you guys have been on with me this far, thank you so much. I probably won't go past 25 minutes. I'm just letting you guys know. So, thank you guys. Even those of you guys that are going in and out of my live stream, I don't know who you guys are, but I totally appreciate it. I thank you guys for it. Um, Thank you, even though you guys can't stay in and out. Maybe your internet connection is off or something. It's all gravy over here, man. So, you know, like I mentioned, on the production side, becoming a club DJ, I learned a lot about music, what type of music sells, what type of music moves people, things like that, how to actually combine records, how to match BPMs. But I also learned how to connect hardwares, how to connect mixers and stuff like that. And it's funny because depending on where you go, depending on what venue you're working for, some you got to be, you got to know your stuff, because some DJs or whatnot, they will purposely sabotage the mixer or do something basically evil, so that the next person that shows up trying to set up either can't set up or gets their computer corrupted, or has some type of hardware malfunction that they purposely set up so that you cannot, quote unquote, take their gig or take their job or whatever. But those things never work, man. All they do is, they're gonna get down to the problem. They're gonna find out what that problem is, and they're gonna fix it. So if they were outed or if they were fired, leaving the mixer compromised or leaving a piece of equipment compromised so that somebody else doesn't get to use it right or properly isn't going to get you your job back, or it isn't going to help you out in any kind of way. If you're gone, you're gone. And if you leave things compromised, they'll find a way. Some people will go as far as replacing the entire equipment just to make sure they don't have to deal with that problem. I remember when a certain individual got upset and they compromised the whole system, and the owners of the venue decided the following day just to buy everything out brand new. They bought new mixers, new cables, they got even a new house computer. They did everything to make sure that they wouldn't have to deal with anything corrupted, because they knew that the individual was very malicious in that type of way. So they just went out. So people will do what they got to do to make sure that they don't have to deal with that issue. So leaving things compromised never helps. That's just been my experience. So, you know, after a while, taking some time in and being a songwriter and learning how to put out music and getting better at it, I started, dealing. The thing, my weakness was I couldn't make beats right. I couldn't, do, I didn't, I had never played an instrument. I come from a family of guitar players, but when I tried to grab the guitar, I was just so not good at it. No, I practice and I'd get better at it little by little. But the thing is that I just didn't have the skill to be a full guitarist. And I didn't know the notes. The notes didn't make sense to me. How my fingers were supposed to be placed at the neck of the bridge, I couldn't do it. And that's because I had the manual with the instructions and I still couldn't get it right. So basically, I never really, and I think in middle school, during orchestra, I had a violin rented to me for like a couple months. So I didn't really get good on the violin either. So anything with strings, I have, I guess I failed for the most part, right? So growing up, I mean, I kind of moved. I found out that I was good at just writing lyrics, so I stuck to just writing lyrics and recording and just being an artist and letting other producers deal with the beat making and stuff like that. And I left it to them, and that's how I've outsourced all of my projects. But then recently, once I started to get into actually producing, not beat making, but actually producing my own music, I started to realize that I did need to learn more of a instrument type skill, not necessarily to be a beat maker, but to collaborate with the beat maker and be able to tell the beat maker how I wanted the beat structured and in what key and what tempo and what BPM and things like that. So that right there brought me to learning. So little by little, I started to look into keyboards and whatnot, and I got me my first native instruments MK32. And like I said, it wasn't to take over the beat making side of it. It was just to learn how to play something, and you learned keys and what was how to stay in tune and certain things like that. Learning MIDI, which I had never known about before. So all these things have been my journey, and from the beginning to now, I have to say, it's been quite a ride. It has been, something I've learned so much. I've learned that you have, the artist side of things, and then you have the production side of things, and then you have the marketing side of things, which is marketing is something that's also very overlooked. And it's been my weakness because when I dropped my project lately and Heartbreak Avenue, I had no concept of promotion or marketing. I just put it out there for the world, right? Thinking that everybody would show up. And of course, it never works out that way. It never does turn out to be the way that you want that we wish it to be. We in our minds, we have this idea of what we think it's going to be and what the reality of it is. So, when I dropped my album, I was so excited. Oh my gosh, when I dropped my album, I'm going to be number 1. I'm going to, probably go on billboards or I had all these wild expectations. And then what happened was uh my CD came out, got a few streams, did this, did I got a few, got props from the people that were around me, the people that knew, the people that I showed it to as far as my own little promotion efforts went. But of course, it didn't turn out to be anything of what I thought it was going to turn out to be. What was in store for me was a reality, a wake up call that I there was a lot for me to learn. I still had a lot to do. I still had a lot to understand, and that it wasn't just about just throwing noodles against the wall, just throwing music out there and expecting for people to just find it, praise it, and stream it. Um, and so I realized that marketing was huge, and it was something that I really needed to work on, and probably even hire out because there was no way that I was going to be able to do all those things on my own, to be a songwriter, to record myself, to to produce myself, to make things right, to do all these things, administrative back and all these hats that I had to wear. It starts to be like, okay, I have to find someone else to do some of these things because I can't wear all hats at all times. Maybe once in a while, but not all the time. So that right there made me realize that I had a lot to learn. It was going to be a learning curve, and I was going to have to choose where I wanted my strong suits to lie. That way, I could focus on those things, and then for everything else, just outsource it. And that's what I've done. That's what I've done throughout the years. And where have I gotten since when I started writing music to where I am right now in this day and age, sitting here streaming myself live while I'm on Facebook, 24 minutes into the recording, and here we are. Well, I'll tell you, I've learned a lot. I've learned that this is not just an art, it's also a business. That's why it's called the Artprenuer Podcast, because you're an artist, but you're also an entrepreneur. So, and being in the music industry is one of the toughest industries that you can be in. Whether you're in the music business or in the industry, in the commercial industry, it doesn't matter. This is a very competitive business. This is very tough. Most people don't really last that long. Most people are also in it for the wrong thing. They're in it to make a quick buck. They're in it for fame. They're not in it for the longevity. They're not in it to build a sustainable business, and they're not in it to build a real fan base. So with that being said, that could derail you into all kinds of things. You also have to keep in mind too that in this industry, there's a lot of liars, thieves, and cutthroats, and you'll be dealing with them a lot throughout your time. If you're an artist, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You got to be careful because this is a very shady business. You can get suckered out of a bag real quick, very quickly. They will promise you promotion, they'll promise you features, they want to tours, all these things they want to, they want to hustle you out of. And all they'll do is just take the money and run and leave you hanging dry. I've speaking from experience. It's happened to me many times, but I've learned and I continued on and I kept going and going and I never stopped because I'm not in it for that. I'm not in it to make a quick buck. I'm not in it for superstar fame. I'm not saying I don't want it. I'm just not doing it for that. Uh, Things like that where I do it because I believe in my art and I believe that this art is a legitimate business that I could turn into a sustainable enterprise. That's why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I want to leave a legacy besides family. I want to be able to leave art behind. I want to look back and be proud of what I've done. That's why I'm doing it. That's my reason why, right? So from then till now, it's been quite a journey. I've grown up, from being that young kid, who was just writing rap lyrics to now composing a full Pro Tool session to release my own project on digital distribution. That takes time, that takes learning, that takes education, that takes dedication of studying your craft and always writing the ups and downs of it. I've had great times, I've had super bad times. And I have to tell you, I've learned more from the bad times than the good times because during the good times, I'm celebrating. I'm out having fun. I'm with my friends. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, you know what I'm saying? And because I'm celebrating, I'm not learning anything. There's nothing to learn. I'm having fun. But then during the bad times, during the hard times, during the difficult moments that I'm going through my career, when I feel like I'm down and out, where I feel like just quitting this music, this is where I really get on my grit, and this is where I learn where my failures lie. And that's what's helped me a lot. Is that it's during the hard moments, man. And I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. It's during the hard moments that I've learned to keep up with my craft, not during the time when I'm celebrating. Because when I'm celebrating, I'm not even paying attention because I'm too busy having fun. You see what I'm saying? So, with that being said, that's how I've been able to just be in it for the long haul and not do it for the reason that most people do it. I do it for the love of the game. I don't play for the points. Although the points are very satisfying, but I mean, I understand that if all those things got taken away, would I continue making music? I believe so. I believe so because I don't do it for just accolades or things like that. I'm not saying that I don't want them, but I just don't do it for those reasons. Those are not my motivating factors. So we're about 29 minutes in to the recording. We're about to go to 30 minutes. So I thank you guys if you've been here this far. And those of y'all that are watching me on Facebook Live, I appreciate you guys. Um, you can always rewind the stream and watch it again. And when the podcast is fully recorded, you can also find it on my YouTube channel. I'll leave the links there below. So you can be sure to check that out. And so I'm about to wrap up the podcast with some final thoughts. And so basically from then till now it's been a journey of growth. I've learned a lot. I've learned what to do, but more importantly, I've learned what not to do. I've learned that the learning never stops. There's always levels to this, and you always got to keep growing, and you always got to keep going. In this field, there is no graduation date. There isn't. You're always growing. This is always something new going on. There's always something that you have to learn, and that's basically part of my growth. And if you were to see me back then, how I started and where I'm at now, you would see that quantum leap, where that growth is at, and how far I've come. And it's crazy how I got my start. You know, uh, basically performing my first show off of another artist's instrumental, writing my own things off of, and being able to, sign autographs on a burned CD mixtape. Being, back in, the early 2006, 2007 time era. And, back then I was young. I remember I was in like, what, my early 20s, I think, back then. So, mid 20s, somewhere around there. And so from then till now, I mean, I'm about to be, what, 38. So it's been quite a few years, most definitely. It sure has. And so we're going to wrap it up. So we're, you know what I'm saying? End of the podcast. So I do have new music coming out, by the way, just in case you wanted to know. If you wanted to know, you can. I'm going to revamp my EP Ghost in the Wind, which is only going to be dropped down to 6 tracks because I just, like I mentioned before, it's a singles economy, and honestly, I feel like 6 tracks is a lot already nowadays because our attention span isn't that long to hear, you know, uh, who's gonna sit and listen to 16 songs front to back? Nobody. So I'm gonna have to cut it down to maybe 4 to 6 tracks so that people don't get bored and say, okay, this is enough. My brain got numb listening to this. Yeah, so I'm gonna revamp Ghost in the Wind album, and I'll be putting that out in hopefully in May or sometime during the fall. And then I have a couple more singles lined up and a couple of more good announcements coming up too as well that I'll be releasing in the middle. But right now I have to keep it on the low for the moment until it is done. But I'm pretty sure that when you guys see it, you guys are going to be amazed, 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 man. And so that'll be it. I'm gonna wrap it up for the podcast today, man. If you guys took time to tune in and enjoy it, thank you so much for being here. I know you could be anywhere in the world right now doing anything, and you chose to tune in with me. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you guys, everybody that's out there. Shout out to my boy right there. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you guys. So, I mean, hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we're gonna wrap it out. So, this was a Davion Knight Entrepreneur Podcast, and we are out. I'll see you next time.